Okay, this is Thursday morning. Today is I'm not even sure what today. Okay, yeah, actually, let's go and look at the date. Today is January 8th, 2026. And I'm Michelle. I moved to Ghana recently. And this video comes as a direct result of some comments I received in the video I posted yesterday regarding some of my personal experiences here. So many things came to mind when I read some of those comments. I thought about my background, my history, my how I was brought up, the things I went through in Jamaica, the things I went through in the US. So many things came to mind. Outside of my experiences, I thought about who I am, how I was shaped, what I stand for as a result of those experiences. And I have no idea which was the most important thing to address based on what came to mind. Because another thing that came to mind, specifically from one of the comments, was the fact that people tend to use words without knowing their meaning. Yeah, they have an idea, they heard the word before, somewhere using a context maybe, and they have no idea what the essence of the word is. And that took me down a totally different path, because I've been through the usual: elementary school, primary school, high school. I went to teachers college, and the only setback I think I had was the fact that because I sent myself through teachers college, there were some things that if I had, probably better financial support, I probably would have excelled more. But I worked with what I had. I didn't have a lot of financial support growing up. But I think a lot of the times I think about it, I believe that if I grew up with parents who had it, maybe I would not have worked so hard to succeed at everything I undertook. Because teachers college was my effort, my financial burden, and I didn't even then have money to waste. So I had to make the best of every opportunity I got. And I had the same thought when I started college for my degree. Another thing that came from my background is after going through college and university, I don't know if it started then, but there's something I never ever do when I'm talking to people, especially when I'm writing. I do not use terms unless I'm positive. And the only way to be positive of the terms you use when you reprimand people or debate with people, conversate with them, whatever. Never ever use terms. I never ever use terms unless I'm positive of what they mean. I'll be talking, I'll be writing, and the terminology comes to mind. And even if I'm partially sure what it means, I have to look it up, right? And there are words that people use some of the times when that gives me the impression that they think all it carries is negative connotations. It doesn't. Confrontation is one of those. I've heard men, I've heard women say, I don't like confrontations. And it begs the question, do they successfully communicate? I'm not saying you only confront persons when you come. That's the only way of communicating. But it is sometimes, depending on who, what the circumstances are, and so on, there are times when confrontation is. The point I'm making is the confrontation is not solely a negative exercise. And individualism is a term that I saw used in a comment. And I smiled when I read the comment because individualism is not a negative. It's not a negative. Every single thing in life requires temperance. It requires care when you're using. It requires you thinking about how much of this am I going to consume? How much of this path am I going to go down? It requires you to use everything with temperance. So individualism is not a negative. It is not. Community can be negative. So this is probably just a video addressing that, but I think I'm going to address each of these in different videos. So this video is mainly to give you a little bit of background about who I am, what shaped me, what brought me here. And in that, I am hoping that you understand a little bit better. No, those persons who subscribe and are willing to follow and listen. It gives you a better idea of where I'm coming from, what I'm not about, and what I am about. Okay? So, I don't know how many videos this will be broken down in, but this one, I grew up in a tenement yard. I was born in a tenement yard. I think my first 3 homes were tenement yards. And there are a number of things that happen in tenement yard that people will mention and probably some won't. Some people tend to run from their past. I don't run from my past. I embrace my past. It teaches me things. All right? First of all, I come from a very dysfunctional family. It rests on the foundation of, yes, the nuclear family, because my father was there, my mother was there. I had siblings. But it was a home that, while my father was present in body, he was absent in a number of ways. My mother had her favorites. I guess that's a very neat way of saying. I'm not sure, but she did have her favorites. Maybe not favorite in the sense that she treat, but I guess it is actually. We were all treated differently. I grew up with 3 siblings, brother, and brother was younger. My sister was older. And not saying that other persons don't have the experiences I'm going to share. I'm just saying that this is me. And because of my background, there are certain things I don't do. I don't jump to conclusions. I don't make judgments without checking certain things first. And there's nothing wrong with making judgments. The Bible talks about judgment. But I believe in research before I speak. And individualism, just in case I wasn't sure, for example, I wasn't sure what exactly it meant, I researched it. Another thing I do is whatever thoughts I'm having, I research what biblical pros and cons exist. And if you put the core principles of individualism in to say Claude or ChatGPT and ask the right questions, you'll understand that the Bible supports individualism, but it also supports community. They're not exclusive. They cannot operate exclusively in a successful way. Having said that, yes, back to the dysfunction family. My father believed that boys were better than girls. Boys, my brother shouldn't be asked to, for example, press clothes, wash plates, clean house. He wasn't supposed to do that. My older sister had mental issues, for want of a better term. She was never diagnosed. That's a thing in Jamaica. Very few children with mental issues were diagnosed. It's not something that people thought about. Persons who do were persons who were aware that they were the mental issues that exist that just were not, it was just not addressed in Jamaica. You had to be extremely, extremely mentally deficient for any kind of attention, be paid to you. But anyway, I'm still gonna try and not have this too dragged out. I've gone 12 minutes already, so let me see how fast I can do this. Dysfunctional home. I was the middle child. What that meant was, as not the firstborn who had mental challenges, and not the wash belly, as we call it in Jamaica, there were a number of challenges I faced that makes me a very strong individual. My experiences, I can tell you, would have made some persons not very sane at this stage in their life. So, and even when I got out of my family, when I became independent solely, and I should point out I was independent from I was living with my parents. Even then, there were choices, there were experiences that definitely shaped me. So let me see how quickly I can do this. My parents believed that because my older sister was not all there, she got away with a lot. And my younger brother was the baby, so he got away with a lot. So a lot of responsibilities fell to me. So I've been in situations where I was the cleaner. I was responsible for my older, not so there sister and younger baby brother, right? I've experienced verbal abuse, physical abuse. In Jamaica, when children are beaten, there is a line you don't cross, because parents believe in corporal punishment. I believe in corporal punishment. I just don't believe that you should beat your children so badly that they have scars or anything like that. However, our past can also shape us, and you have to be very careful how you treat your children as a result. Anyway, I was run out of my mother's home around 17, thereabouts. I remember when I left high school, I left with about 2 or 3 subjects. I went back to evening school and I was made aware that um, all I had to depend on was me, the individual. I had to find a way to see if I could get some more subjects. And my mother washed her hands off me. In fact, she ran me out of the house because I taught back. Yeah. I told my father that basically I wasn't much of a father. He liked to use people things, but he didn't give things. He liked money, but he didn't like to give money. He didn't believe in supporting anything financially beyond what could support him individually. And my mother was one of those mothers at the time who believed that the male reigned supreme. So whether or not we had food, well, maybe I shouldn't say that. He got the best of everything. It was, in retrospect, he gave her nothing. So I grew up in that kind of environment. Outside of that, someone broke into our house. I was almost raped. I was at St. Diego in, I don't remember if it was 4th or 5th form. But someone broke in the house. My mother's response was, they should have raped me and cut my head off because I forgot to lock the back door. I still wonder if I did, because I recall closing the back door. But I think, as I recall it, my father went through the back door when he was leaving. I don't totally remember. It's not important. Before that, I grew up in a yard where there was this other house. And when I say tenement yard too, every house I lived in up until I was around 10, 11 years old, I lived with other families in the house, in the yard. And the last one before we got our own house, in our own yard, had 2 boys who sexually molested me. I don't want to call it assault because it's not like a one-time thing, right? After that, there was an uncle who visited for years and sexually molested me again. Then, every relationship I had some kind of sexual trauma, date rape. There was a guy who went to school with me who came back to visit Jamaica. Years later, we were adults now, and he came. I saw him at church. We caught up, not sharing every story, but we caught up. And I remember he asked me to help him out. Just call me out of the blue, because we exchanged numbers. Call me out of the blue and told me that he really needed somebody to come and stay with his babies. He had twin boys. He had a meeting that he was supposed to go to, and he didn't. He did. I don't remember if somebody was supposed to come and they didn't come and so. But I remember I jumped in a taxi, and let me tell you, I'm not somebody who always had money to jump in a taxi. But I remember I jumped in a taxi and went to help him. I fought. I ended up in a fight, and I mean when I say fight, I had to bite that guy in his head because that's what I did to avoid being raped. I married somebody because my first daughter's father came from a home where his father, a pastor, was also an abuser. And this is me skipping a whole lot of things, a whole lot of details. And that too was a story of sexual, emotional, psychological abuse for years, to the point where I contemplated taking my own life. And then outside of that, praying for his death. And I had to decide on my own to take myself and my daughter out of the situation. I could go on with other things. I'm thinking, I'm just giving you a pinch of the background. Why am I saying all of this? There are certain things I learned from those situations. Family situations, in communities where people share matches and salt and sugar, where community, you could say, was a dominant factor. But individualism, self-actualization, the fact that you have to think about your individual survival is also a must. In every community, in family is a community. I had an uncle who sexually abused me. I had an aunt whose husband sexually molested me. Now, in all of those situations, the surrounding family, surrounding community of just people who you live with or among, you must survive individually. The same people you live with in your community can become your abuser. So there is no experience that tears down individualism. And there's no experience that tears down community. Each is equally important. So for anybody, anyone who comes on my YouTube page and listen to one or two videos and hears something that offends you, I'm going to ask that you think about, firstly, your reaction to the comment. Is it valid? Why did you respond or react the way? Why did you react the way you did? There are certain things that are knee-jerk reactions or garner knee-jerk reactions in me, and even then, I have to think about the knee-jerk reaction, think about how I respond, because one, I don't want to do no overall judgment on anyone. Two, I don't want to say anything that makes me look like an idiot. So I think about it, think about why I reacted the way I react, and make sure I am checking myself first. I check myself first. If you want to sound intelligent in your response, and I am hoping everybody who comments on my things want to be intelligent, want to be not reactive, responsive, yes. Please research terms, research too my other videos, because that too is a point of. And if you have done that and your comment is valid, please note that in your comment, because then I will be able to respond in a responsible way. I try to be. And then I'll know too that you have commented in a responsible way. Due diligence, please. Check, research before you comment, especially if you're going to make a general judgment in the comment that you're making. I plugged every point that came to mind in Claude, and I'm going to touch on every single thing that came to mind when I saw those comments. Having given you a little bit of background, I am in Ghana. I am in a new environment, and I am aware that my experiences are my own. Please be aware of the same. They are my experiences, whether they are negative or they are positive. Having said that, there is no community, no country that has all positives. And there's none that have all negatives. If I choose to focus on the negative that it's me, it could be I'm a pessimistic person. I don't think I'm totally pessimistic. I don't think I'm totally negative. There are Ghanaians who have more recently, one or two, done things that have been positive. The gentleman that I mentioned, for example, who got the young ladies to come and assist me, his act was a positive one. The fact that 8 persons turn up to me is a negative experience. And this is taken into consideration my understanding or possible understanding of why she brought her family. Persons who have come here to work on my house came because they were being paid to be here. Have there been persons who have done things that are positive? 1 or 2. But let me be clear. My experiences here have been maybe 50-50. If I take them one at a time, many of them have been more negative than positive. And even the positive ones have negative undertones. Does that mean that Ghanaians are bad? No, they're human. Does that mean I'm bad? No, I'm human. But please keep in mind, these are my experiences. Please. I'm near the almost 30-minute mark, and I want to get off this topic. But for all those persons who want me to say or who see what I've put out there in my videos and want to say that I'm negative or want to say that I'm being negative about Ghanaians in particular, I can put every single thing that happened here, the building of my house, the things that people stepped out and did for me, and I can, for every positive, I can give you a negative. What I need, and I have done, is embrace the negatives with the positives. They are experiences, life experiences. The person who said they're not going to charge me for something, that's positive. But the result has been negative. There has been negative. The fact that I don't have money to pay for certain things, and there have been persons who step forward and assisted, that's positive. there have been negative things as a result of the acceptance of that help. That is life. I am going to say again, it does not change my feeling about Ghana. It does not hinder me from moving forward. It will not stop me from embracing Ghanaians. It will not stop me from accepting help when it's given. And for persons who turn aside because there are negative experiences, that's bad. I do not allow fear. I do not allow the negatives to stop me from moving forward. I don't use one person's fat to fry another, or one group's fat to fry another. Never have, never will. I've had experiences where I've been physically abused by men a number of times. It doesn't make me think that all men are bad. I don't. They are good men. They are good Ghanaians. And let me tell you something. My experiences with men should have made me a recluse, made me avoid man in total, because from my father, the males in my family, every male relationship I've had to this point in time have been negative. But I believe there are good men there. It could be something in me that made me choose men who are like there or have been. That's for another story. I'm just letting you know that my experiences have led me. I believe I'm a strong person. I believe in changes. I've embraced changes. I try and avoid judging people in a way that tears them down. I embrace positives and negatives. I want to be a part of a community here. And the negative experiences I've had does not change that. Think I've said enough. So while I'll be, doing other things or addressing other issues that came from some of these comments, I just needed you to understand where I'm coming from. And I hope having said and shared a little bit about my past will let you understand that. But please, please do not make comments and use terms without researching what those terms mean.